What is up, everyone? Do not even try here. And yeah, it's been a while since I've even posted a video, even more a build video. And yeah, today we are finally back with a new build video. We are going to tackle down another Sherman. I know I do a lot of Sherman on the channel, but I just love him to death, and I assure every time that all of them are all different versions and everything. And yeah, today we are tackling down Zvezda's brand new M4A2, which I will be building with a United States Marine Corps paint scheme and style and everything. Because I'll be honest with you, even though the kit is absolutely wonderful, like there's nothing to say about the kit except one or two things that I will get to during the video. The decals option and all the paint scheme options are, in my opinion, pretty boring, and in the Pacific there's just so many things you can do with customization and paint schemes and everything. So I really decided to just give it a go for a real Marine Corps style Sherman. And I'll be extremely honest with you, this is right now my masterpiece. So without any further ado, let's get into the build. Alright, so first thing I will do with this kit is actually turning it into a proper Marine Corps Sherman. The Marine Corps, until the late stages of the Second World War in the Pacific, used the A2 version of the Shermans, which utilized a diesel engine. It's just because it was the most available for them, and the Army kind of reserved all the A3s to them. So the Marine Corps just went with the diesel engines. This kit is a late A2 with a different hull, which has lesser angle but removes the two weak points on the UFP. And yeah, so what makes the Marine Corps Sherman so special is all the modifications that the crew made to them to protect them more against Japanese attacks. So the first modifications I do is adding wooden armor on the side. These wooden armor were added to protect the Shermans against those Japanese shaped charge sticks. It's like the Japanese equivalent of a Panzerfaust, but on the end point of a stick. It was that weird. And so what I do to create the armor is basically just cut a piece of balsa wood around the hull to match the shape, and simply split that piece of balsa in two to just make like two planks. And I think it creates a very, very, very nice wooden armor. To glue the armor in place, I simply brush some white glue over the side of the hull, and I assure myself to have, first of all, an even coat and having glue on all the sides of the hull. Don't worry if you have some spillage. PVA glue is easily removable with water or just the tip of your finger. While the wooden armor is drying, I start working on improving the turret and the transmission casing. That's one of the negative points of the kit. There is absolutely no texture on both of them. So it's not a hard fix to do, it's extremely easy, as you'll see, but I mean, For a new kit, I would have expected at least some bits of texture. But hey, it's not too much of a problem. First thing to do when retexturing is assuring yourself that there is no seam line. So sand all the seam lines down like I just did, and just clean the part so you don't have excess plastic that will show through. Then with a mix of extra thin glue and Tamiya basic putty, I stipple the entire turret and transmission casing to give it that nice cast texture. If you want a more detailed tutorial on how to do cast texture and armor texture and everything, I'll leave a link to Nightshift's video in the description, who explains very well how to make a very convincing cast texture. One thing to assure, this is a Sherman, not a T-34. It is made in the United States of America, not in the Siberian Russia. So the Shermans were still in very good quality, so the texture doesn't need to be extremely heavy. When the wooden armor is finally dry, I engrave the seam between the two planks a bit more, so it gives a very nice edge between the two that is much more visible. Now we come to the tricky part. Those wooden armor didn't hold on their own. So what I do is cut down some bolts which were like on a spare sprue of my M10, and I super glue them to specific points on the wooden armor. These will just simulate bolts that hold the armor, and it gives a very nice detail, which in my opinion makes the armor look 1,000 times even better. Now, this is not a necessary part, but it helps a lot. What I do is water down some PVA glue and brush it all over the wooden armor, so the glue can sip inside of the wood and hold it in place like a varnish would. That avoids the wood from getting splintery later on. I am now just gonna speed that part up because there's really not much to say. It's simply building the turret itself. Everything goes together absolutely wonderfully. This kit was just incredible. Just like, for example, this kit costs $30 Canadian dollars. It is more detailed and more recent than a $50 Tamiya kit of the same vehicle or so. This kit was just incredible, and everything fitted just perfectly. It was a blast to build, and I cannot wait for Zvezda to get their M4A 376 out, because the moment it is out, I am buying it. Now for the second main modifications, using a piece of stretch sprue, I do these very iconic spikes over all the hatches and all the viewports. These were made so Japanese infantry who had a bad tendency of climbing onto the tanks to throw grenades in the hatches and everything would be wouldn't be able to because of those spikes. and it's such a very nice detail to have on a vehicle because it's so original. It's not something you see often, so adding them just made that into a very cool detail. Now to glue them in place, I simply put some bits of poly cement over the area I want the spikes to be in and simply put them on. In retrospect, I probably should have gone with super glue because first it holds quicker, and second the the small bulb of super glue makes a very nice weld seam. Actually, it looks kind of real. So later on when I do the etches on the hull, I will be using super glue, but here I am using polycement. So where do I add the spikes? I add them on the etches, on the viewports, on the bore evacuator, which is a small round you see between the two etches, and that's about it for the turret. And on the hull, I just simply add them to the etches. Now I am briefly just gonna fly over the build portion of the hull because again there's really nothing to say. Everything just went together flawlessly. It's a new kit. It's super well done. Everything went together perfectly. I just have praise for this kit. And I am now adding the spikes to the driver and co-driver's hatch. Note also that I have added a spare track holder which were commonly found on Marine Corps Shermans, and to that will be added two rods which hold two spare road wheels on the transmission casing that will be added later. I am now building the bogies, which are iconic on the Sherman. These are the VVSS ones, which are the early variants. They went together very nicely, and there's nothing much to say. It's pretty much add the springs, add the arms, add the return roller, add the wheels, close everything up. Pretty much once you get into a rhythm, it goes extremely fast. And the kit is made so you cannot, let's say, you cannot get the size wrong. You cannot build like four right side bogies. There only can be three right and three left, like a real Sherman. So that's a very cool thing, especially for beginners. Now we come to the tracks. This is, in my opinion, the only downside of the kit. It might be because of me, because I absolutely despise link and length. Um, building them, building them is not the problem. That's not the issue. It's because what I usually do is paint and weather the tracks separately, and the problem is that once everything is painted, the problem is not building them, it's refitting them to the tank, and that's always a pain to do. But like here you can see, building them was not a problem. Just link them together, let the glue dry for 5 to 10 minutes so they hold together but are still flexible, and you just connect them to the other parts and shape them. That's not the issue. Um, but yeah, I absolutely despise link and length, and especially on Shermans where the tracks were actually tensioned pretty much. You don't need them. Rubber bands will do the job because they are naturally tensioned. But yeah, that was just pretty much the only issue I had with this kit because I absolutely despise neck and length. After that, I simply add some bits of stowage, in this case the two road wheels, a helmet on one of the light guards, and two tarps on the front hull. After that, I built the suspension wooden armor. Easy enough, I simply measure the size I want and cut a rectangle out of it. That's as easy as it gets. After cutting out the rectangle, I cut the piece in two separate halves of about equal length. And at the end, I simply end up gluing the armor to the suspensions with this time super glue because I wanted to speed things up a bit. After that, add the bolts and the build portion of the Zvezda M4A2 75W was complete. So, I hope you have enjoyed the part 1 of our mini build series on the M4A275 from Zvezda. Next episode, we're just gonna complete the vehicle entirely, paint and weathering in one go. And yeah, this is by far my best tank so far. I have it completed right beside me right now, and I absolutely adore it, so I hope you'll enjoy it too. This has been Do Not Even Try, and I will see you next time.